Okay, I don't know if I'm going out of order here at this point, but if there's only 3 members, are you guys advertising for, okay, are you presently? No, there's a highly touted position that, these people should be jumping at this opportunity. It's a great stepping stone.
Yeah.
Okay, item 3, action items. Which I don't think we have any action items, do we not? All right. So we will run to item 4, discussion items. So we got 1 and 2, the calendar and then the bylaws. So calendar. So what's the question?
Mr. Chair and members of the board, in your packet is a list of potential meeting dates for 2024. They are provided for discussion this evening, and then hopefully during the January meeting, as identified in the bylaws, the calendar or schedule can be approved. I would like to ask that you note that the town council did move their January meeting to January 9th. So the regularly scheduled ARB meeting on January 9th will need to be moved. And I don't know if you would like to consider the following Tuesday or another day. But you can take that under consideration, and maybe during the January meeting, when you approve it, you can approve it with your preferred date in January. Well, no, actually, I'm sorry. We'll need to identify that date.
Do identify it today, correct?
Yeah.
So I'm glad January 9th doesn't work because I'm in Vegas at that time, so it doesn't matter. So I wouldn't be here. So to me, the subsequent Tuesdays would work for me. So that would be
the 16th.
16th.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great.
Good with that too. I don't think I have anything.
Great.
So Bill, you probably don't give a darn what dates we have, do you?
Well, actually, as my parting shot, I have gone through the list, reviewed the bylaws, and I have a number of suggestions, but I'll wait till we get to that.
Perfect. That works. So as far as, again, these dates go so far, I can usually make the dates work as long as I know. So do we need to make a motion to approve these dates as suggested, or do we do that next month?
We'll have to do it next month, as the bylaws state that you would do it at your first meeting of the year.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll change January 9th to 16th, and we'll let the other guys roll from this point.
Sounds great.
So no vote required at this point on that.
Correct.
Got it. All right. Awesome. Okay. So then the bylaws, item 2 within the discussion items.
Mm-hmm. So also within your packet is the bylaws adopted February 6th of 2018 in the electronic documentation and file that we have. These were the latest and most recent bylaws that I could locate. I wasn't sure if there was a more recent set or if any amendments had been approved of the bylaws since 2018. I did go through and look for any items on the ARB agendas to amend the bylaws, and I couldn't locate any. So again, this is what I see as the most recent, and provided to you for your review, consideration, and for any amendments to be considered as action items in January.
Got it. So as far as I know, these are the latest from that I'm aware, and I know we have not made it a regular agenda item regarding adjusting any bylaws. So before I let Jim, because it looked like Jim had a lot of notes, there is one that you were, I believe you had stated that the agenda requires like 9 items or something like that, where,
Yes, on the agenda, yes. Yes,
and I read through this and I didn't see where it said it was required to have 9 items,
right.
which area is that, sir?
That's let's see, page 6, 4.2 F.
Again, so when so the way I'm reading this doesn't say, this is just the order of the business as it should follow for regular meetings. It doesn't say it's required to have
Okay,
9 items
okay,
on it.
Okay.
From the way I've read it
Great.
previously.
okay.
So I don't know if you guys are reading that.
Yeah.
The same.
I am actually.
Yeah, it doesn't say required, it says, but shall be.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's kind of permissive shall be.
And it's the order of business. So it's not like you can't have an agenda if you don't have 9 items, basically. So. All right, Jim. So it looks like you've got a bunch of things, because
Okay.
again, I've read through this a couple times, but
Okay, well, while we're on the subject of the agenda item, I read through them too. I had a question on one of them. I don't quite understand. On agenda item number 5, the approval of consent agenda. I'm not sure what that means, consent agenda. Maybe somebody could explain how that is different from anything else, from the proposed agenda or the approved agenda.
I do not know.
Maybe
Any
legal.
help from you, Mr. Haber?
I am not familiar. Often, I guess the consent agenda includes a number of items that are approved en masse or at once. And yeah, I don't know if historically the ARB has had any items on a consent agenda that they've considered or not.
I'm aware of none.
So what I'm thinking it might mean, and it may be something similar to what council does, because when I look at 4.2I, it's talking about I guess it'd be you, Tim, if you were to have something that you maybe that night that you feel like needs to be included in the agenda that was set forth, you would have to have the consent of the other members to
Oh, I see.
allow that to be discussed.
Okay,
Gotcha.
That's kind of what I'm.
okay,
Okay.
okay. But I just had that question about the definition of consent. And then in regard to the total listing, I realize that 16 items seems quite lengthy. However, I think there's some value in itemizing all of these for every agenda, in the sense that, for one thing, we have, sometimes new members, or sometimes the chairman is not present and the vice chairman has to take over. Having a total list makes a good, guideline or outline for what every meeting possibly could address. And also, I think that, some of these items, even though they're not dealt with at a particular meeting, just the fact that, it would be indicated that, the subject did not come up has value. So that, for example, presentation, item 7, presentations to the ARB, it could be just answered by, none, or there were no presentations. So I think there's some value in just, addressing the negative to show that,
So,
there wasn't any activity on
so
that
basically
point.
you're saying, what you're suggesting is on our monthly agenda, literally have all 17 items, 16 items listed, and that's basically just not applicable for that meeting. It's just run through them. You just want to have them listed so that if someone feels there should be something that's there that they didn't think about it, they can
That's
put
correct.
it at that time.
Yes.
Got it.
I think there's value just in presenting the total list so that everybody is aware of what, the possibilities that, could come up, in the future agendas or for that particular meeting.
Yeah, I have no issues with listing all the items. It's just a little bit more typing, but other than that, yeah. And like I said, if it's not applicable to that meeting, it just will be highlighted and then indicated it's not applicable. Just keep moving forward, so.
And I think that, in the sense that the agendas, at least in, organizations that I belonged to, before, that, it helps with the, writing up of the minutes, to have, all items listed.
Sure.
And the agendas are, pre-written, they're prepared so that, essentially it's boilerplate and it wouldn't necessarily require any additional work.
Agree.
Okay.
All right.
Would you like me to continue on?
Please
with
do.
other- Okay. It mentions that, item 3(4)A regarding the chairperson, that the chairperson should be elected by voting members of the ARB at ARB's first regular meeting in July of every year. And this also applies to, election of the vice chairman.
Mhm.
I'm going to raise the question of, why is it necessary to have the election of, officers in July? And essentially, I'm going to propose that under item 4(1)A, where it says the ARB shall meet at least 3 times per year, per calendar year, that it just state that the ARB shall meet at least 1 time per calendar year. Our experience this past year has been, that, other than this meeting this year, or this, month, I think there was only 1 other meeting in this calendar year.
At
And I
least
don't
one,
think we,
maybe 2. I don't know.
I don't know if we met in July to elect officers.
I think I remember 2 meetings.
Yeah, I think it was 2.
So I'm just thinking that there may be an advantage, in, doing more at what is identified as the, required organizational meeting in January of every year. That would be a time when,
Well, I think
officials
that
can be
part of
elected.
your answer is it's always July, because that's the fiscal year. That's basically when
Mhm.
so the July is basically the fiscal year of the boards, if you will. Is that correct?
Of the
So that's
town,
why the
yes.
elections are in July.
Mhm.
Okay, well, these are bylaws which we can change, so, I see, 2 other advantages in having the members elected in January. One is that elsewhere in the bylaws, it's mentioned that an annual report should be presented in March to the town council. And the other thing is that in
Thought it was,
election town council elections are normally taking place in November, I do believe, aren't they? So that when there's a new town council board and they have time to establish themselves, then if any new committee members for ARB need to be appointed, you have a new board that can make suggestions for members. In other words, it all comes down to a lot of consolidation, that things be done in the January organizational meeting. Both election of new ARB members and presentation of the report that would go to the town council.
I think actually that, because I was reading when you were on the dates, that report that's supposed to be from the chairperson is actually in June, which basically in essence is the end of the fiscal year. So July is when the new, so the June is the actual report. It's saying in 4.1H, it's that the ARB is supposed to meet with the council once a year. And then the annual report is to be presented in June for the town council.
Yeah, but I think elsewhere it mentions that the annual report is for the previous calendar year. So it just seems to have more currency to present the 2023 report to the town council at the January meeting in January 2024.
Okay, so again, it's based on, from what I'm reading, it's based on being the fiscal year, and then where you're talking about. So I think on what you're talking about is 4.1H is that the report is supposed to be ARB during the previous calendar year and anticipated training. So that calendar year should probably actually say fiscal year, not calendar year, because the report is in June and the fiscal year is from July to June. So that if you're reading the one or is that where you read that in the 1H?
1H, yeah. The other thing is that I'm surprised if the Dumfries Town Council considers June or July the end of a fiscal year, when for almost all, especially federal government agencies, and I think state agencies also, that the fiscal year operates from October.
I can't answer that. Do you?
I think in the Commonwealth, most municipalities do have a July to June fiscal year. In spite of the fact that, the federal fiscal year is different.
Okay, because I'm pretty sure the fiscal year for the federal government
Right.
begins October 1st.
It does. You're absolutely right.
It's just a peculiar
Mhm.
economic, financial
Yeah.
calculation that it's done that way rather than calendar years. But I thought that we could take guidance from the point of view of the bylaws suggesting that the report, the annual report, be given in January, or rather in March of the following year, which I think is somewhat belated. So I think all my suggestions basically boil down to essentially at least one meeting a year, which would be the organizational meeting in January, and elections of members would be done at that time, and the presentation of the annual report would be done in January also. So I think that, summarizes my ideas on this, and, I leave it for the board's consideration.
Thank you, Jim. Again, I'm not. My thought is to, because I'm pretty sure it's all based on the fiscal year being July through. So, and in reading, I think the only part that doesn't make sense to me is where it says calendar year and 1.4.18, because again, March is not the presentation of the annual report. March is the ARB meeting. The annual report is in June, which is basically at the end of the fiscal year, where July starts back up. So I hear your thought process. I don't think there's any need to start wrangling with those dates personally.
Yeah, I agree. If the fiscal year, and I agree with you on that too, maybe that's what that should read. This meeting is not a report. This March meeting is just a meeting.
Yep.
Correct?
Yep.
And if the fiscal year is June to July, or July to June, however it is, if that's changing, that is, what's, for lack of a better word, it's going against what's common.
It wouldn't be
I'm saying
consistent with the,
Yeah, that's the word.
yeah.
Consistent with what, I guess, being done at a local level.
and with the meetings, again, I would suggest still keeping it 3, because you've got the January meeting that's supposed to be the date meeting. You've got this March meeting, which is supposed to be, which we have never done since I've been on here. In March, we have never met with town council. I can tell you that much. I have been, I know, previous chairmen have been to the town council and provided reports. I've provided reports a couple times at town council, but with that's been pre-COVID that I did that. So again, that's something that presently me as a chairman should start getting back into as required by the bylaws, and the future chairman should be running that through the town council. Even if there's basically zero to say, I guess, because they theoretically should have that on their agenda every meeting, I would imagine. So I don't know if they do or not. So.
Okay, in regard to the chairperson, giving the presentation to the town council in March, the bylaws state that the members of the ARB should be present. And I just thought that it might be sufficient if the chairman alone is sufficient to make the presentation, and presence of other members is not necessarily required.
I personally like the engagement of the other members being involved in that meeting, because you have the one presentation that you do that's just you, the one that's your July or whatever it is. I feel like the other members of the ARB should be present for this annual meeting, which you've never had.
Which we have for sure have
Maybe
never
we're gonna
had.
start doing that. I mean, you know, we need to do that, and I would like to be there, you know, to be engaged, and I would hope that whoever else is on the board would feel that same way.
I agree. And again, that's one of the things that I feel like us as a board are not shunned, but with the fact that this tells us we should be there a certain amount of times, and we haven't, we sort of are not being visible enough to where we can keep, because I've got a couple comments about a couple things that have been, that are on the street right now. in the historic district on the open forum, that we need to engage with the town council more actively to make sure our voices are heard. So,
Okay, my comments were just essentially procedural recommendations.
Yeah.
And I bow to the judgment of my colleagues and withdraw my suggestions.
and again, I with the 1.4.1H, I've underlined calendar year, because again, that it will be I'm gonna want to look that up and see if that makes sense, but I don't think it does. It should be fiscal year or whatever, because it's not the calendar year. But I do appreciate the suggestions and comments. Any other discussions regarding such?
I have nothing further
Thanks, sir.
in regard to
Yep.
that subject.
Trying to think, is there a time frame as to how quickly we're supposed to get members in here? Because I thought there was. But you did say, Mr. Tabor, that you actively have it somewhere to where is it publicly being sought out, or is it just through word of mouth being sought out for members of the board?
Right, currently word of mouth, but we will also put it on our website.
Yeah, again, if you could do that, I think that would be. Because basically you're just looking for, because I'm the business member, so you're looking for residents, correct?
Yes.
All right. Any other bylaw discussions?
I have.
Okay. All right, so we'll go to the next item, which is 5, open forum. And I've got just 2 different things that I want to ask, and then I'll yield the floor to anyone else here. So on the open forum, and I'm going to make a statement about something that was approved by the previous by Nick. I can't remember his last name. Cicero. But so the I think it's the Afghan restaurant, the newest one, right there on the corner. Main Street there, and we have talked about this before, is originally they had, and it's up there now, they had a big 4x4, 5x5 sign on the side that they had started doing and stopped because the sign was going to be backlit, which is not permitted by the sign in our ARB sign standards. And so it was sitting there for the longest time, and now it's up and it's a backlit sign. So some of these signs are getting approved. That sign never went through the ARB. And it was discussed at one time at the meeting, and Nick said that he had stopped it because it was backlit sign, and that they were going to introduce something or something to that effect. And then now that sign is up there. So for one, did Nick actually sign off on it? And how do we get to the point where that sign comes down?
So we would have to do a site visit and an investigation and determine whether or not the sign is conforming, or if it's not, if it is non-conforming, then we'll send a notification to the sign owner and let them know that it's out of compliance and that it would need to become in compliance within a certain period of time, usually 30 days. And then follow up after that time has expired. If it has not been corrected, then follow additional legal action.
Do we need, as a board, need to make any formal request for you to do so, or is us discussing it here at this meeting sufficient?
Discussing it tonight is sufficient.
Right, so if you could look into that, it would be greatly appreciated. And so this is my issue, and it's an underlying issue that we've had with signs and other things, is that when this guidelines were revamped, it took a long time. And when I got here, it was already in the process of being revamped, and it took a very long time. We literally went line by line and used a bunch of other templates from other historical districts to come up with these guidelines. And so we just want to make sure with the work that we were requested to do as a board and what's on here, there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in there. We had a forget the word I want to use, but basically an outside, not professional, but consultant review some stuff and give us guidelines and all that to help us out with this. So what happened is, hooray for the roses and that massive project and the tax influx that's going to get. That's great. But the main sign for that is in the historic district, right off of Main Street. That sign was approved without any of our knowledge. And then we requested it as a board to look at the drawings, got them submitted. And so that sign is backlit. That sign has digital display. It has basically probably 3 or 4 things that's not allowed within our signage guidelines. So that was pushed through without us reviewing it at all. And so that basically is water under the bridge at this point. But what's going to happen is once that sign comes up, it's going to create friction for any other business that are trying to get signage in this area. And that's consistency is the key to keeping historic districts historic. So that's going to be an issue. I'm predicting at this point, that's going to be an issue for future signs coming down. And so even with that new main building right there across the street that's happening, again, there's probably not going to be a whole lot of signs there now that it's all residential rather than mixed use, which is what we were told it was going to be. And as a side note, we have seen absolutely nothing relative to that new structure itself. So that was going to be another thing that I was going to ask about. But so we just need to make sure that new signs, if it's getting pre-approved, if it's getting approved by you or Nick previously, that it basically needs to follow the guidelines that we've got. And if it's an issue, I'd rather have us as a board review it and either approve it, deny it, suspend it, whatever, rather than seeing it after the fact. Because as you know, trying to fix anything after the fact is 10 times as hard.
I remember that meeting too, what you're saying, because Nick had said he had stopped it and that they would be coming back
Yep.
to us with something, an alternative or something like that.
Yep.
And we never saw that.
Correct.
And I don't know if you have a way of finding out whether or not he did just go ahead and approve them doing that. But if he did, then that's an issue because now they can say, hey, it's been signed off on.
Yeah.
Now we got a bigger fight.
Correct.
But if he didn't sign off on it, they didn't do it. They were supposed to do it. Pretty much they just let the time go by and figured,
Yeah.
okay, they're going to forget about that.
That's what I'm thinking.
You know,
I know
Could be wrong,
yeah.
but that's.
I know I signed no certificate of appropriateness for that, guaranteed. I know 100% on that.
Yeah.
So then the last item that I have, well, actually, I've got two others. So that new multi-level complex has changed hands again and is now under review. Is there anything that, where is that project as far as, because we're supposed to be approving colors, materials, patterns, shades, all that stuff. And the previous structure, which was a multi-use complex, we had multiple meetings on that, and we've seen nothing on this new building.
Are you referring to the Aris on Main project, the multifamily?
Yes,
Okay, across from Colonial.
correct.
Okay, yes. We are awaiting a site plan submittal. And we have not received a formal submittal for review at this point. So, everything is still, I believe, conceptual. And when we do receive a submittal, then anything that needs to be reviewed by ARB will definitely be submitted. And any items that relate to regulations and the guidelines will definitely make sure that they are in conformance or come to ARB for review.
All right.
The only thing that even I seen is when they came to the planning commission meetings with just, general drawings, pretty much sketches of ideas of this is what it's gonna look like.
Yeah.
But it was nothing detailed.
Okay. All right, and the other thing I got is, with how few that we get these meetings and then the stipend that comes in, I found an old check that I never cashed.
Hmm.
And it says 90 days and it's way beyond the 90 days. Should I just rip that up, or can I get another one reissued, or is it just done?
I'll check with our finance department and find out what we can do.
But and again, I don't do this for the couple bucks that we get, but
I probably got one.
it's good to throw in the slot machines when I got it.
Absolutely,
And that's all I've got.
Okay.
Gentlemen, anything?
As I mentioned informally before, this is going to be my last meeting. I'll be sending a letter of resignation, formal resignation to you, Mr. Tabor. I just have some going through my files, my collection of ARB materials. I have some background information that may be in your files, but to save you from having to go through to see if you have this stuff, after this meeting, I'll turn this material over to you,
Great.
which includes such things as the initial presentation about the town center plan, and also,
Oh, that's gold. Don't lose that.
well, this is
Yeah.
or I turn it over to you.
Oh, I got my
You can-
copy right here.
But this is a color scheme that we base our criteria on for painting and coloration for construction here within the historic district. So I think it was our former member Jim that obtained these for us, and like you say, there are not too many copies around.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you're welcome to that. And then the background on the town center. I guess anything to do with the town center is passé. It's that project is not going to occur. So this information is just historical. And then were I to continue on the board, I'd be extremely interested in this new development because having been here at the time when we went through the exercise of reviewing the plans for the town, for the first town center, it was pretty exhaustive, and it was essentially a 2-year process. And I don't know if the new project will be fast tracked or not. I think the previous project was as slow as it was because of the developer himself phasing things rather cautiously. So I wish the board well on dealing with the new project and hope that it will be successful and make a real contribution to the architectural appearance of the town of Dumfries, which is with anything will be an improvement.
Well, we greatly appreciate your time on the board. It's been a few years. So
Thank you.
greatly appreciate everything you did for us.
Yes, sir. I haven't worked with you long. You know, I got on there, just before COVID, I think. And you guys have been here for a long time, putting in a lot of work. And, you know, we plan to still do our due diligence and try to make sure that people conform with what we want. Because as you said, Jim, this town center project has already changed. It's not going to be what we were told it was going to be. And for the record, I said it when they came in, did their presentation, that it wasn't what I wanted.
Yeah.
You know, but at that point, here we are, and things are slated to move forward as they, with the changes and it, you know, not having the retail aspect of it, but we still have to make sure they just don't do whatever they want to do.
Exactly. 100% correct. Yeah, it's the fact that it's residential only and it's not retail, and the whole in discussions previously where the retail is going to bring people in and make it a place to walk around and a place to be. When it's straight residential, it has the complete opposite effect.
Understood.
So I agree. It's not what I was hoping was going to happen. I was sort of excited about the other project, but
As was I.
it is what it is. All right, any other items? All right,
To me.
well, I will at this point call the meeting to order at, what is that, 6:44? And how many seconds?
44.
All right. Meeting adjourned. Appreciate you guys. So now we need to get a lot of new blood in here.
Yeah. We do.
So you're going